Hello and welcome to Jake's interviews employees podcast. Pending a name still, but just wanted to give everybody a chance to meet the people that are working in your accounts, are working within Dubsado to build up our platform and introduce some of the awesome people that we have working with us. And so today, wanted to start off our first one with Alex, our biz dev guy. He works partnerships and collaborations and sends out cool gifts and swags to a variety of events. And he's a really cool guy. So say hello, Alex.
Thank you. That is an awesome introduction. Hi, my name is Alex. Jake kind of hit it on the head. I think I jokingly refer to myself now as the chief evangelist here, just in conversation, which basically just means that my job is to spread the Dubsado love. And however I can do that, whether it's kind of more in a more professional sense, in a more organizational sense, like with partnerships, or if it's just a blog or just getting to know people and make connections, that's what I'm going to do. And I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that you mentioned the evangelism, because back when we were first getting started and getting everything off the ground, we were a fledgling company. And I don't even remember how long you were on before we went to our first hiring event for the programmers, and we interviewed quite a few people. And as we were giving the pitch for our own company, I realized that what we were doing, what we were building really did mean something. And that was because of the words that were coming out of your mouth. And that to me was the day where I finally fell in love with my own company. So it's
Wow.
really cool to have you on board and to see you spreading our news to other users and at events and connecting with people that, really could use Dubsado or at least become a part of our family in some way.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's I think that's the first time I've heard it articulated that way. But yeah, I think back on that hiring event as well, which just a hilarious situation. It was you and I going to this really prestigious kind of coding boot camps hiring event, and we were just in the midst of a bunch of Fortune 500 companies, and Dubsado was still growing up, and in spite of that, it may be feeling like maybe we could have felt out of place. But as we were talking to people and as I was kind of connecting the dots in my own mind about how a software could be so impactful to people, which was what I was looking for and what I was going to be spending my time working in going forward. I was looking for something that I could really be making a difference in. And initially, I never could have thought that it would be this software, this awesome product, Dubsado. But in my short time as I hopped on, it became very clear that what we were doing was making an actual impact with people who really need help. And if I could bring people on board to that, if I can spread that idea, then that was just my goal, and it was awesome and exciting, and it is.
A lot of what we talk about here in Dubsado revolves around sports. And although I know very little about professional or college sports, everyone else in the office seems to care a lot about it. What are some of your favorite sports, teams, and why?
I love sports. I actually love everything. And I think it's really important to be really balanced in kind of the media you take in and the things you kind of are cultured in. And I just love sports, and I've loved sports since I was little, specifically LA-based sports. I think sports do something that no other medium can do. Art, music, cinema. I love all of those things, but there's a special something about the way sports galvanizes cities and countries that is just really incredible. So I love the Dodgers, Lakers, Kings, Galaxy, U.S. Soccer, USC, and anything that's LA based. But I appreciate sports overall.
Nice. Yeah, I still would like to one day hold a conversation with you about sports, but I'm still working my way up to get there. For me, my interests are pretty limited. I don't even know what I like to do, honestly. It's just I like to code and hang out with my kids, so it seems kind of boring to me.
Those are two really good things, and so you should not be ashamed of that. But I know you like to watch some good TV, and
Yeah,
like,
no, I like
some
I like Netflix originals and all that, like,
gardening.
all the good stuff coming out these days. But I also have on the list of things that I love would probably include my wife too. Man, it's just family and work. I'm a really simple guy, but in your discussion of sports, you used like 3 or 4 SAT words, and that's another topic of Alex is his wide variety and expressive use of the English language, and the ability to tell a story based on very little actual detail in the story.
I'm not sure if that's being phrased as a compliment or a criticism.
Everything turned into like some crazy fairy tale by the end of it. Like whenever Alex comes back from lunch and we're like, "Hey, how was lunch?" It was either that was the worst place in the world, and then if it was good, that was by far the best quesadilla I've ever had. Life changing.
I can't deny those charges. It's actually kind of funny that this has become this kind of running joke in the office, because it's actually something that I wasn't made aware of until this year by my actually fiance, and she was the first person to ever make fun of me for this, and it happened really late, and so it wasn't actually long after the first time she kind of like gave me a tough time about that, and I started becoming really aware of it, and I was like, oh shoot, like she's right, like
I think it's your passion.
And then like it must have been a few weeks later, we had this conversation come up at the office, and I thought it was the most funny thing. It was a fairly humorous exchange. But no, I think it kind of coincides with naturally what my desire is, which is to kind of spread passion, and I do that, and there's no filter whether it's passion good or bad. I would say I have strong opinions on things, but not in like a way that leads to stubbornness. Rather, like I feel really strongly about things, specifically things that I think can impact or have an impact more or less on like the people I care about. So whether it's like a restaurant or a software, if I think it's something that can provide value to people and I'm passionate about it, I guess that's just what I do. It's just instinctual.
Yeah. So where did your passion for the creative community come into play? Was it after joining Dubsado? You're like seeing all of, who we're getting connected with and what we're developing, but also I know you had a lot of connections in your own friend circle that really, and college, I guess, maybe. I'll let you answer it.
No, that's a really good question, and it's something I think about a lot these days, because going back to growing up in Burbank, as you're aware of, it's the entertainment capital of the world. So movie, film, TV, music studios are all here, and so you're more or less inundated by creativity every day. Like you just couldn't escape it. And I even went to college to pursue vocal performance, so singing, which is an inherently creative act. And as I went through college, even though I was surrounded by creativity more or less every day and was doing all these awesome creative things, I never considered myself a creative. I thought I had a pretty decent voice, but I actually eventually switched to music business. Then I switched to business and kind of took myself out of the realm of being able to.
Oh, that's right, because you wanted to get like a regular job.
The idea of pursuing my creativity became less important than doing something I thought was right or that made more sense. So I remember conversations even where people would ask me, like, do you think you're creative? And I honestly, at this time I could have been flying around to Europe and singing in these cathedrals and doing these awesome creative things, and I answered them no. Because when I heard that question, my immediate thought was, I heard it as, do you think you're someone who can make your living off of doing something creative or like pursuing your passions? And my answer to that was no. So when I left my corporate job about a year after I graduated, and I was in the middle of looking for what it is I really wanted to do, that question had kind of come back up. And I was starting to be honest with myself about what that looked like. And when you approached me about Dubsado, initially I looked at it as a potential to work at a software company, and I looked at that and I was like, I don't really know how that's going to fulfill my creative like desires and maybe what I'm looking for right now, and trying to work on my passion. So it was only after, and it was pretty immediately after, I'd say like a couple weeks after I started here, that once I realized I was working in capacity more or less every day with people who were living that dream that I was so afraid of for so long, those people inspired me so greatly. And I realized that I was being energized and motivated by the fact that I now get to help people, empower people who maybe were in the same position I was, or, or maybe they're on the fence, or maybe they're just making that decision. And through like my experience and my exposure to all of you in the Dubsado community, it's taught me so much about what it looks like to pursue creativity, and now I get to do that and help people with that every day. So yeah.
All right, I think we can wrap it up and maybe talk about one last subject. What's your favorite movie? And I think that's something like
question.
I wanted to have a really hard question for you, and I think that is a really hard question for you, particularly because of your diverse passions.
Exactly, because I've probably called like 50 movies the most incredible movie I've ever seen.
And you can't explain it. Just what's your favorite movie, and you have to answer it.
Okay. Well,
and you can't make any noises while you think.
This is an impossible question to answer.
Declines to answer,
because there is my favorite movie. There are movies I think are better movies. So I guess I'm just gonna say what my answer is, regardless of context, and it's gonna be, I'm just gonna say Star Wars, and I'm gonna say Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. And how I usually answer this question is I would say Star Wars overall as like an entity is like my favorite film like thing. And then I would like talk about a movie outside of that and kind of as like a standalone. But in this kind, when it's just like, just name something, well, I have to give it.
That's fascinating, because I am always really impressed by space movies. I think they capture the imagination of humanity, and we're all pretty much stuck on Earth, like minus a few lucky or unlucky space travelers. I don't think I would ever go to space if I have the opportunity. I would be quite frightened.
Yeah.
Can't
even deal with like normal plane takeoffs. So.
Yeah, the idea of being on other planets and like having these alien creatures is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah.
Different cultures and just the metaphors that have been injected into these different cultures.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Well, and it's also that like I just love like the classic hero's journey, and I think that what a lot of people overlook about Star Wars, and it's easy to be like, oh, I love Star Wars, and you're like, oh, because you love space battles and stuff. It's like, yeah, I think that's really cool, but we forget that like the original Star Wars trilogy was it was pretty groundbreaking in terms of like the storytelling structure and in terms of like the character arcs, and obviously for a lot of the cinematic things that went into it. And we have pretty much like our modern, what we think of modern filmmaking today, so much of it is owed to that trilogy. It just changed everything. Something as simple as like the twist of, an main villain being the father figure. But like, it's so kind of like, it's kind of cliche now, but at the time, things like that just didn't happen. Like, you didn't start a movie with the good guys losing in like epic proportions. You didn't start a movie with that. And you didn't end it with the hero learning that the main villain is like their father. Those, it seems so simple, but those kind of like things just weren't happening. And now I see it everywhere. So I love those films. They're awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for chatting with me.
Yeah, man. This is super fun. I love it.
All right. Peace out.
Peace. Sorry, I'm like super sweaty because that Patagonia is really hot. So
It was your decision to put it
I know, but like then it was really hot in this room.